Welcome to the Sleep Library. I'm so glad you've joined me tonight. If you're looking to unwind, relax, and gently drift into the world of calm, detailed history, then you've come to the right place. Tonight, we're diving into a fascinating journey, one that might seem quite simple at first glance, but is filled with subtle details and quiet transformations. We're going to explore the history of chairs and sitting. How have humans evolved in their need for rest, comfort, and posture? What were the first chairs like? And how did sitting, a seemingly ordinary act, become a central part of our daily lives? Before we settle in for this long, slow-paced exploration, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the Sleep Library. Let me know if you enjoy this peaceful journey and what you'd like to hear about next. Now, let's get comfortable and start our exploration of chairs from humble stools to the majestic thrones of kings. Sitting such a simple act, yet the practice of resting one's body in a seated position has a long, quiet history. It's an action we take for granted every day, yet it's one that has evolved over thousands of years. Before we even begin to explore the intricacies of chairs and furniture, it's essential to understand the beginnings of sitting itself, where it all started, and what the first moments of rest must have been like for our ancestors. The earliest humans, who lived many thousands of years ago, had no chairs, no couches, and certainly no armchairs or reclining seats. In fact, they didn't even have the luxury of resting on the ground in the way we do today. Most of our ancient ancestors spent their days in motion, walking across vast landscapes, hunting for food, or gathering what nature had to offer. The concept of sitting, of slowing down, and allowing the body to rest was not something they experienced in the way we do now. The first humans likely found places to rest when they needed to, but these places weren't designed for comfort. Instead, they would have simply squatted or cross-legged on the earth, taking a brief respite from the demands of the day. Squatting, after all, is a natural human position, a position that most animals use for various tasks, from eating to resting. It is not a seated position like the one we know today, but it still allows the body to recover from the fatigue of walking or standing. Even in these early days, the need to rest would have been apparent. For survival, humans needed to conserve energy, and squatting or sitting on the ground would have been a way to do just that. Early humans may have spent hours hunched over the ground, perhaps leaning against rocks or the trunks of trees for some form of support. But as humanity developed, so did the need for more permanent, more comfortable resting places. We do not know exactly when early humans first created something like a chair, but we do know that as civilization developed, so did the concept of rest. The first seating arrangements came into being with the rise of ancient Egypt, around 2600 BCE. It is here that we find the first signs of something that resembles a chair. Archaeologists have uncovered simple stools made from wood, with straight legs and flat seats, often very low to the ground. These stools weren't lavish or particularly comfortable, but they served their purpose. They allowed people to sit above the dirt and ground. These Egyptian stools would have been used by high-ranking individuals, like pharaohs and priests, or those who held positions of power in the society. They were not for the common person. They were symbols of authority, perhaps even status. These early chairs were modest by today's standards, but they marked the beginning of an important shift in human history. The transition from the earth as the primary place of rest to the creation of specific objects to facilitate that rest. Fast forward to the great civilizations of Mesopotamia, where the need for sitting in more structured ways became more apparent. The Sumerians and Akkadians, who thrived in what is modern-day Iraq, created a variety of seating arrangements. Early Mesopotamian furniture was rudimentary, consisting of low wooden benches that might have been used during feasts, rituals, or moments of leisure. These benches, much like the stools of Egypt, were not for comfort but function. The designs were simple, the materials basic, and the overall aesthetic was one of practicality. In ancient Egypt, wooden benches were found in the royal palaces, but for the common people, the ground was still the most accessible place to sit. Cushions might have been used, but they were rudimentary and served only as a small buffer against the hard ground. Similarly, in Sumerian homes, the elite would sit on raised surfaces, while the lower classes would have made do with whatever simple surfaces were available. In this way, the gap between those with power and those without was often marked by the simplest of details. You had a chair, and who had to sit on the ground. The ancient Greeks would be the next to introduce new seating arrangements. Their approach to furniture was influenced by their philosophers and their new ways of thinking about comfort, leisure, and intellectual pursuits. Socrates, for instance, is said to have preferred sitting on the floor in a posture that allowed him to engage with his students at eye level, fostering a sense of equality. Yet, in the grander homes of Greece, chairs began to appear, chairs that were designed with the idea of comfort in mind, at least in comparison to what had come before. The klysmos chair, for example, was a favorite in ancient Greece. It was a wooden chair with curved backrests and splayed legs, a design that is still influential in modern furniture design today. The klysmos chair was not only functional, but also beautiful. It combined comfort with elegance, a novel idea that would carry through the centuries. Yet, again, only those with status could afford such chairs. The common person, as in previous civilizations, would have to settle for simple stools or benches, sitting on the ground when they needed to. As time progressed, the need for more comfortable seating arrangements grew. This need would be answered, though slowly, over the centuries. Yet, despite all the advancements, the idea of sitting on a chair that was designed for comfort, as we understand it today, was still a long way off. The first real armchairs, with padded cushions and armrests, would not emerge until the Middle Ages, when seating finally began to shift from being a luxury item reserved for the wealthy to something that could be enjoyed by more people. The slow journey of sitting, from squatting on the earth to sitting in a chair, is as much about the evolution of culture as it is about the evolution of the body. We see in the early stools, the benches, and the early chairs a growing awareness of the body's needs, a growing understanding of how sitting can be used to rejuvenate, to relax, and to reflect. And as the centuries passed, this understanding would only deepen, eventually leading to the comfort we now associate with sitting. From this simple beginning from the ground to a humble stool or bench, we've traveled a long way. But every chair, every piece of furniture, tells the story of the people who made it and the time in which it was made. And so, in this calm exploration of history, we begin our journey through time, discovering how the act of sitting has evolved and shaped our lives in subtle but profound ways. As we move forward in history, we encounter the first tangible signs of the evolution of chairs, not as simple seating for rest, but as symbols of power and authority. The early stools and benches of the ancient world were largely utilitarian, designed to serve basic needs. However, as civilizations began to flourish and grow more complex, so did their seating arrangements. The desire for comfort began to intertwine with the need to express one's status, and so the first thrones began to emerge. These elevated seats would not only serve the purpose of sitting, but would come to symbolize something far greater: power. In ancient Egypt, the development of thrones marked the rise of the elite. The pharaohs, rulers of the land, were not content to rest upon simple stools or benches like the common people. Instead, they sat upon elaborate thrones, often carved from wood and ivory, adorned with precious stones, and carved with intricate symbols and designs. These thrones were not just pieces of furniture, they were declarations of authority. The higher the seat, the more elevated the ruler appeared above their subjects. It was not just about comfort, though the thrones were certainly more comfortable than the humble stools, but about presenting the ruler as above all others, both physically and symbolically. These Egyptian thrones were designed with high backs, large armrests, and wide seats. They often featured legends or hieroglyphs inscribed upon them, telling the story of the pharaoh's divine right to rule. These chairs were reserved for those at the very top of society, where the common people had no access to such luxuries. For them, resting was still confined to the ground or to simple stools made of wood or stone. But for the elite, the throne became an integral part of their identity, a physical representation of their elevated position in society. Similarly, in the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia, rulers began to adopt elevated seating arrangements as a way of asserting their dominance. The Sumerians and Akkadians, who lived in the fertile plains of what is now modern-day Iraq, built their thrones from a variety of materials, including wood and stone. These thrones, much like their Egyptian counterparts, were highly decorative, featuring carvings and inscriptions that symbolized the power of the ruler. But even beyond the thrones, Mesopotamians had a deep appreciation for the symbolism of seating. Elevated chairs were reserved for those in positions of power, and these individuals were often seen sitting above others during ceremonies, feasts, and religious rituals. One of the most fascinating aspects of these early thrones is how they represented not just comfort, but the idea of divine authority. In Sumerian culture, it was believed that the king ruled by divine will. The king's seat, therefore, had to reflect that divine right. It had to be elevated, solid, and majestic. These thrones were not designed for casual sitting, but for ceremonial purposes, meant to symbolize the ruler's control over the kingdom and their connection to the divine. Just as a modern-day throne signifies royalty or power, these early seats communicated the exact same message. As we move westward to ancient Greece, the need for more comfortable and functional seating began to emerge. Although thrones still played an important role in demonstrating power and authority. The klezmos chair, which is often cited as the first true chair in Western furniture history, was introduced around the 5th century BC. Unlike the thrones of Egypt and Mesopotamia, the klezmos was designed with both form and function in mind. It had curved backrests and splayed legs, giving it a fluid, elegant appearance that was perfect for the Greek sense of beauty and refinement. Yet, even though this chair was a significant leap forward in terms of design, it was still largely a status symbol used by the elite, philosophers, and lawmakers of the time. The Greek philosophers would often engage in discussions while sitting on these chairs, and it's easy to imagine how the simple act of sitting on a klezmos chair might have conveyed a sense of intellectual authority. In contrast to the heavy, imposing thrones of Egypt, the klezmos was a lighter, more graceful design that still served to elevate the person sitting in it, but in a less overtly grandiose way. It was a subtle symbol of authority, one that communicated sophistication and intellect rather than raw power. In Rome, chairs began to take on new forms as the empire grew in power and complexity. The curule chair, a type of folding stool used by Roman magistrates, was perhaps the most notable development in Roman seating. Made of wood or ivory, it had a crossed-leg design and was easily portable, making it ideal for the public ceremonies and gatherings that were such a central part of Roman life. The curule chair was used by those in high office, including consuls and other magistrates, as a sign of their authority. Much like the thrones of Egypt and Mesopotamia, it was not meant for casual use, but for formal occasions that demanded a visual display of power. The curule chair was significant because it combined practicality with symbolism. It was lightweight and could be carried around, yet it still conveyed a sense of authority through its design. It wasn't just any chair, it was the seat of a magistrate, a symbol of the person's political power and public office. In this way, chairs were evolving from objects of status to more functional and symbolic representations of authority. Even as the concept of elevated seating spread across different cultures, the idea of the throne remained central in medieval Europe. Here, The king's throne was not only a seat for rest, but a physical manifestation of the divine right of kings. The throne was often placed upon a raised platform in the royal courts, and it was surrounded by the most elaborate decorations. These thrones were often made from gold and precious gems, sometimes with high armrests and thick, cushioned seats. The symbolism was clear. The king sat above his subjects, and the throne was the seat of ultimate power. Throughout these early periods, chairs and thrones were not just places for sitting, they were symbols. They were objects that spoke to the person's status, power, and authority. Whether they were the simple stools of ancient Egypt or the ornate thrones of medieval Europe, these seats were designed to elevate the person sitting in them above everyone else. The idea of comfort was still secondary to the idea of elevation, both physical and symbolic. As we look back at these early thrones, we can see how the act of sitting was imbued with meaning, how a chair was not just a functional object, but a vessel for conveying power, dignity, and authority. These elevated seats were a privilege, a mark of distinction reserved for the few. And it was not until much later in history that sitting would become a practice for all, not just the elite. From here, we will continue to explore how chairs evolved further from the high thrones of royalty to the more humble armchairs of the Renaissance. Each step brings us closer to understanding how the simple act of sitting transformed from a symbol of power into a universal practice, one that now defines much of our daily lives. As we enter the Middle Ages, the world was undergoing transformations in nearly every aspect of life. These changes were not just in politics, religion, and society, but also in the simple, quiet objects that surrounded daily life. Chairs, as we know them, were still a rarity. Most people continued to sit on the ground or on simple benches. But as the centuries passed, the idea of comfort began to take hold in a way it had never done before. In medieval Europe, the most significant and comfortable seats were still reserved for the clergy, nobility, and royalty. For the common people, sitting arrangements were still quite basic. The concept of comfort had not yet fully permeated the masses, but in the homes of the wealthier classes, something new was emerging: the armchair. The armchair, a seat with arms that provided extra support, was a revolutionary design. While early thrones and stools were about status and power, the armchair began to speak more to the idea of comfort, a concept that had not been the priority of earlier chair designs. The idea of adding armrests signified a move toward relaxation, allowing the sitter to rest their arms, a small but significant step toward more ergonomic seating. These early armchairs were still far from the cushioned, comfortable chairs we know today. They were often made of wood, with hard, flat surfaces and no upholstery. The seats were usually upholstered with fabric such as wool or tapestry, but the padding was minimal. The design was functional, not luxurious, but it marked a shift in thinking. The concept of seating that was not merely functional, but intended to provide comfort, was beginning to take shape. The first armchairs were used primarily in the homes of nobility and in churches. In a medieval home, only the lord and lady of the house would have access to such chairs, and these chairs would often be decorated with rich fabrics, intricate carvings, and symbols of family heritage. The armchair, in this context, was not just a piece of furniture, it was a symbol of the person's position in society. The more elaborate the armchair, the higher the status of the person sitting in it. Churches, too, began to adopt armchairs. The bishop's throne became a prominent feature of church architecture. These thrones were often placed on a raised platform at the front of the church, where the bishop would sit during services, sermons, and religious ceremonies. These seats were designed to elevate the bishop both physically and spiritually. They were often elaborately carved, with detailed designs of religious symbols, and some even had gold or silver inlay. They were beautiful objects, meant to reflect the sacred nature of the office. In the homes of the wealthier, armchairs began to be used more widely. They were still reserved for the head of the household or guests of honor. but they began to appear in living rooms and great halls, spaces where families and guests would gather. These chairs were used for sitting during meals, for conversation, and for relaxation, but they were still far from the comfortable seating we might imagine today. By the 15th century, as the Renaissance began to take hold in Europe, the armchair began to evolve in both form and function. During this time, there was a renewed interest in classical antiquity and a desire to revive the furniture designs of the ancient Greeks and Romans. In this period, chairs began to be made with more elegance and refinement, influenced by classical ideals of symmetry and proportion. The Renaissance armchair was often more refined than its medieval predecessors. Woodcarving became more intricate, and many chairs began to feature upholstery. Velvet, damask, and other fine fabrics were used to cover the chairs, and more attention was paid to comfort. The padding in these chairs was still minimal by modern standards, but it was a start. The addition of armrests, backrests, and upholstery made the chairs much more inviting. The idea that a chair could be both functional and comforting was beginning to take shape in earnest. One of the key factors in the development of armchairs during this period was the increase in leisure time. With the rise of wealth among the merchant class and the spread of new ideas during the Renaissance, people began to spend more time in their homes, entertaining guests, engaging in intellectual pursuits, and relaxing. This new focus on leisure and comfort was mirrored in the evolution of furniture. Armchairs became more than just functional seats. They became a place for rest, for quiet conversation, and for comfort. Throughout the Renaissance, armchairs were not only used in private homes, but also became an essential feature of the growing furniture collections of aristocratic homes. The wealthy and powerful began to collect antique furniture as a way to display their status, and armchairs were a central piece of these collections. These chairs were often placed in highly visible areas of the house, where they could be seen by guests and visitors. A finely carved, richly upholstered armchair became a symbol of wealth and sophistication. At the same time, the role of the chair continued to evolve. In public spaces, such as town halls or royal courts, chairs began to be used to indicate status and position. The king's chair, for instance, was often placed on a raised platform or throne, where it became a symbol of his authority. In contrast, lower-ranking nobles would sit in chairs that were lower to the ground, still elevated from the floor, but not as high as the king's seat. The chair, in all its various forms, continued to evolve as society became more complex. The armchair, in particular, began to reflect a growing emphasis on comfort, a shift from purely symbolic seating to something that could be used to rest and relax after a long day. This was a quiet revolution, one that did not make headlines in the history books, but would lay the foundation for the comfortable, ergonomic seating that would emerge in later centuries. As we move further into history, the chair and particularly the armchair will continue to evolve. But the Middle Ages and the Renaissance were critical periods in the history of seating, marking the transition from a simple utilitarian store to the armchair as a place for comfort, conversation, and status. These early armchairs may seem quaint by today's standards, but they were the beginning of a new way of thinking about the act of sitting, one that took comfort and relaxation into account, and one that would continue to evolve as society changed. As we move deeper into the passage of time, the Renaissance marks a significant shift in how we perceive comfort and luxury. The 14th and 15th centuries ushered in a new era of artistic, intellectual, and cultural rebirth in Europe. This period was characterized by a renewed interest in the classical ideals of ancient Greece and Rome, particularly in art, philosophy, and architecture. It was a time when the notion of beauty and elegance began to intertwine with the everyday objects of life, including chairs. The Renaissance chair was still, for the most part, an item reserved for the elite. The design of chairs during this period was influenced by the growing wealth of the merchant class, who, having prospered from trade and exploration, sought to display their newfound affluence. But it wasn't just about status anymore. The pursuit of comfort and aesthetic beauty began to emerge as key aspects of furniture design. The armchair, which had gained popularity during the late medieval period, continued to evolve throughout the Renaissance. Now, armchairs were not only functional but increasingly ornate. The woodwork became more elaborate, with intricate carvings and patterns inspired by classical designs. Chairs were often constructed from oak, walnut, or other fine woods, and were often inlaid with gilded decorations, symbolizing both wealth and a deep appreciation for craftsmanship. But comfort began to take on a more pronounced role. As the wealthy class enjoyed more leisure time and spent more time indoors, the need for comfortable seating became more pressing. Upholstery began to appear in these Renaissance chairs. Soft fabrics like velvet and damask were used to cover the wooden frames, providing an added layer of comfort. Though these chairs were still far from the ergonomic designs we see today, they represented a major step forward in terms of comfort, as they combined the traditional upright, stiff seating with the beginnings of padded softness. One of the most notable developments during this time was the emergence of the high-backed armchair, often adorned with rich fabric or tapestry. These chairs were commonly found in the homes of nobility, in courtrooms, and in the great halls where banquets and gatherings took place. These high-backed armchairs served both practical and symbolic purposes. The backrest was meant to provide comfort, but it was also a visual statement and assertion of status and power. As we enter the Baroque period, which spanned the 17th century, the evolution of chairs and furniture continued to reflect the increasing affluence of European society. The Baroque era was a time of grandiose art and architecture, where ornamentation and luxury were prized above all else. The designs of chairs from this period were much more elaborate, with curved lines, gilded details, and rich upholstery. Chairs began to feature exaggerated curves, swirling patterns, and extravagant carvings. It was a time when comfort and luxury were no longer separate. They were now inseparable. The Baroque chair often had deep, cushioned seats and was covered in luxurious fabrics such as silk, brocade, or velvet. The legs of these chairs were often decorated with ornate carvings, and the arms were often supported by sculpted figures. These chairs were often seen in the homes of the very rich, in royal palaces, and in churches, where they were used by the clergy. The throne had become more than just a symbol of authority. It had become a statement of opulence and grandeur. During the Baroque period, the concept of seating for comfort began to evolve beyond just the wealthy classes. The bourgeoisie, the growing middle class, began to emerge as a significant economic force, and their newfound wealth allowed them to demand furniture that was both functional and beautiful. The demand for well-made chairs grew, and new forms of seating began to emerge to meet this demand. The armchair became more widely available, and seating began to become a more accessible luxury, though still a luxury nonetheless. One of the key features of Baroque chairs was the focus on ornate decoration. The chairs from this period were meant to impress, to stand out, and to reflect the wealth and status of their owner. Carved wooden legs, often shaped into intricate scrolls and foliage patterns, became common. The backrests were often high and curved, designed to cradle the body in a manner that was both decorative and supportive. The upholstery was rich, often featuring floral or geometric patterns, and sometimes even gold thread was used to create a feeling of opulence. Throughout both the Renaissance and Baroque periods, the idea of sitting of what it meant to rest, to relax, to engage in conversation was shifting. Chairs were no longer simply functional items. They had become status symbols, but more importantly, they were beginning to be recognized as places for personal comfort. The Renaissance had introduced a new kind of chair that emphasized elegance and functionality, while the Baroque period took those ideas and magnified them, adding luxury, comfort, and aesthetic beauty to the equation. These periods laid the groundwork for the future of seating, where chairs were not only viewed as functional objects, but as expressions of personal style and comfort. And yet, despite these advances, Chairs during the Renaissance and Baroque periods were still far from the chairs we would consider comfortable by modern standards. They were hard, often stiff, and rarely ergonomic, but they were a step in the right direction. As we move forward into the next era, the evolution of the chair will continue. The Baroque period may have introduced opulence and grandeur, but it wasn't until later periods that the chair would truly evolve into something that was designed not just to reflect wealth and status, but also to provide the utmost comfort. The next chapter in the history of chairs takes us into the Enlightenment, a time when the shift toward rationality and practicality began to influence not just philosophy and science, but also furniture design. As we move into the 18th century, we enter a period known as the Enlightenment, an age of intellectual and philosophical revolution. During this time, new ideas about reason, individualism, and practicality began to shape the world. The Enlightenment thinkers, such as Voltaire, John Locke, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, advocated for an approach to life that was grounded in rationality and order. These ideas not only transformed political thought and social structures, but also found their way into the world of design, particularly in furniture. By the mid-1700s, the previous emphasis on opulence and ornate decoration began to give way to a new aesthetic one that favored simplicity, clean lines, and functional design. The Rococo style, which had dominated much of the 18th century, was replaced by a more neoclassical approach that reflected the values of the Enlightenment. Chairs began to shift in both style and function, moving from the lavish, elaborate forms of the Baroque to designs that were more practical, aesthetic, and rooted in reason. The neoclassical movement, inspired by the rediscovery of ancient Greek and Roman culture, sought to embrace the simplicity and elegance of classical design. This was reflected in the furniture of the time, which was often characterized by straight lines, geometric shapes, and restraint in decoration. Chairs were now being designed with an emphasis on functionality, comfort, and proportion, ideas that were influenced by the classical principles of balance and harmony. One of the most notable chair designs of the Enlightenment period was the fauteuil. The fauteuil was an open-armed armchair with a simple wooden frame and a comfortable upholstered seat. Unlike the heavy, ornate armchairs of the Baroque period, the fauteuil embraced lightness and elegance with its graceful curves and soft, upholstered fabric. It was a chair designed not just for sitting but for comfort, allowing the sitter to relax and engage in conversation or intellectual pursuits, a reflection of the period's values of rational discourse and personal comfort. Another key development during this time was the introduction of the side chair, which became a common fixture in homes, salons, and intellectual gatherings. The side chair was characterized by its simple, straight-back design, often with squared or curved legs. It was less grandiose than the fauteuil and was meant to be a more everyday piece of furniture. Yet, despite its simplicity, the side chair was designed with comfort in mind. The seat was often padded, and the backrest was designed to provide gentle support for the sitter. This focus on ergonomics was a subtle shift from the stiff, uncomfortable chairs of earlier periods, and it marked the beginning of a design philosophy that would continue to evolve throughout the centuries. The Enlightenment also saw the rise of the English and French styles of chair design, which would greatly influence furniture styles across Europe. In England, the Chippendale style emerged, named after the famous cabinet maker Thomas Chippendale, whose furniture designs were known for their graceful lines and attention to detail. Chippendale chairs often featured carved legs, fluted supports, and upholstered seats, but they were much less ornate than the furniture of the Baroque period. Chippendale's designs were deeply influenced by the classical ideas of proportion and symmetry, and his chairs reflected the growing interest in neoclassical aesthetics. Meanwhile, in France, the Louis XVI style came to the forefront, named after the French King Louis XVI. This style embraced the simplicity and elegance of classical antiquity, with straight lines, geometric patterns, and soft, muted colors. The Louis XVI chair was characterized by its rectangular backrest and squared legs, which were often adorned with carved motifs such as floral patterns and rosettes. The overall design was one of restraint, with an emphasis on clarity and order, mirroring the intellectual values of the Enlightenment. These chairs were often upholstered in luxurious fabrics like damask or brocade, offering both beauty and comfort in equal measure. It was during this period that the notion of comfort began to be fully integrated into chair design. In the Baroque and Renaissance eras, chairs were primarily symbols of status or used for formal, ceremonial purposes. But as society shifted, the Enlightenment thinkers emphasized the importance of individual comfort. Chairs were no longer just for show or for those in power. They began to serve a more practical, everyday function for people of all social classes. Comfort became more than just an afterthought. It became a central consideration in design. One of the great innovations of this period was the introduction of more ergonomic seating. The fauteuil, the side chair, and the Chippendale chair all represented an early understanding of how the human body interacts with the chair. The backrest was angled to provide support without forcing the sitter into an uncomfortable position, and the seat was padded to create a comfortable sitting experience. These innovations laid the groundwork for later developments in seating design, particularly the ergonomic principles that would define chair design in the 20th and 21st centuries. The Enlightenment also saw a shift in how people used their furniture. The growing importance of social gatherings, intellectual salons, and leisure time meant that chairs became more than just functional objects. They were now spaces for conversation, for reflection, and for relaxation. The fauteuil, for instance, was the perfect chair for intellectual discourse. It provided a comfortable and supportive seat for long discussions, which were a central part of Enlightenment culture. Similarly, the side chair became a key piece of furniture for dining rooms, where families would gather together for meals and conversation. As the century progressed, the Industrial Revolution began to take shape, and with it came even more changes to furniture design. The rise of mass production would make chairs more accessible to the general public, and new materials such as steel and leather would transform the way we think about seating. But the changes that began in the Enlightenment were profound. Chairs were no longer just about status or power. They had become a part of everyday life, providing comfort, support, and an opportunity for relaxation. The Enlightenment, with its focus on reason, practicality, and individual well-being, marked the beginning of a new era in chair design, one that would continue to evolve into the modern world. The 19th century brought about an unprecedented transformation in all aspects of life. The Industrial Revolution, which began in the late 18th century, was a period of intense change that radically altered society's relationship with work, technology, and even the objects that surrounded everyday life. Chairs, once reserved for the elite or designed by skilled craftsmen, began to undergo a quiet revolution of their own, one that would make them more accessible and practical for a growing population. As industries grew and mechanized production took hold, the very nature of manufacturing began to change. The rise of factories, mass production, and advancements in technology allowed furniture, including chairs, to be produced on a much larger scale than ever before. Chairs were no longer handcrafted by artisans, but were now being mass-produced using machines. This shift in production methods would make chairs more affordable, widely available, and diverse in design, marking a significant step forward in the evolution of seating. The rise of mass production also meant that chairs could now be made in bulk and distributed to a much larger audience. No longer were chairs reserved solely for the wealthy or those in positions of power. As factories became the heart of industrialized societies, people from all walks of life could now access well-designed furniture for their homes and workplaces. This was a monumental shift, a democratization of comfort and style. However, as mass production took over, quality control became a key issue. Early mass-produced chairs, while affordable, were often made with less attention to craftsmanship. The machine-made chairs of the early 19th century could be produced quickly and cheaply, but they lacked the fine details and durability of their handcrafted predecessors. Wooden chairs, once meticulously carved and polished, now had simpler forms and often more standardized components. They were functional, yes, but not necessarily beautiful or lasting. These chairs were designed for utility rather than elegance, reflecting the new values of the industrial age: speed, efficiency, and accessibility. One of the most notable developments in chair design during this time was the introduction of new materials. The Industrial Revolution gave rise to the use of metal and steel in furniture production, a dramatic shift away from the traditional wood that had dominated chair design for centuries. Iron frames and steel reinforcements allowed chairs to become more durable and supportive, making them suitable for more demanding environments such as factories, offices, and public spaces. Metal chairs, unlike their wooden counterparts, were much less susceptible to wear and tear, and they could withstand the stresses of constant use. Perhaps the most significant chair design of this period was the bentwood chair, which emerged in the mid-1800s. The bentwood technique, invented by the Austrian furniture maker Michael Thonet, involved the use of steam to bend wood into smooth, flowing curves without breaking it. This innovation allowed for the creation of lightweight, durable, and aesthetic chairs that could be mass-produced. The Thonet No. 14 chair, also known as the Viennese coffeehouse chair, became one of the most iconic designs of the 19th century. It was made from bentwood, had a simple round seat, and featured a graceful curved backrest. The No. 14 chair was incredibly successful, and its lightweight yet sturdy design made it suitable for use in CAFS restaurants and homes across Europe. The bentwood chair revolutionized chair design in the same way the assembly line revolutionized manufacturing in other industries. It combined functional simplicity with elegance, and its design was easily adaptable to a variety of environments. The ability to mass-produce such a chair meant that it could be sold at an affordable price, making quality seating available to a broader range of people. The success of the bentwood chair was a perfect example of how technology and design could work together to create a product that was both practical and aesthetically pleasing. At the same time, the rise of steel chairs in the late 19th century also contributed to the growth of public seating. The increased demand for seating in factories, offices, and public spaces led to the development of more industrial-style chairs made from metal and leather. These chairs were designed for comfort, but also to withstand the rigors of a modern, mechanized world. The steel frame chair, with its simple lines and utilitarian design, was a far cry from the ornate wooden chairs of the previous centuries. Yet, it fulfilled the growing need for seating in a world where workers were spending longer hours in factories and offices. The mass production of chairs during the Industrial Revolution was also influenced by the Victorian era, which was characterized by a fascination with exotic materials and luxury. As the wealthy elite continued to demand luxurious furnishings for their homes, furniture designers sought to merge the industrially produced with the opulent. The Victorian armchair became a symbol of both comfort and luxury, featuring upholstery in rich fabrics like velvet, silk, and brocade. These armchairs were designed for relaxation, with high backs, wide seats, and plush cushions. They were used in drawing rooms and salons, where the upper classes could gather for conversation and leisure. In contrast, for the working class, the focus was on effort and functionality. The simple, unadorned wooden chair or metal seat became a staple in homes and workplaces. These chairs were mass-produced, inexpensive, and accessible, allowing people from all walks of life to enjoy the basic comfort of sitting in a chair. The Industrial Revolution had, in a sense, democratized the chair. What was once a luxury item for the elite had now become an essential part of daily life for people across all social classes. As we moved toward the 20th century, the mass production of chairs would continue to evolve. The focus on ergonomics, comfort, and style would grow, driven by new technologies and materials. But the transformation of chairs during the Industrial Revolution was a pivotal moment in history. It marked the transition from handcrafted, one-of-a-kind pieces of furniture to mass-produced, standardized products. It was a revolution in both form and function, and it set the stage for the chairs of the future. As the world entered the 20th century, a new wave of industrialization, innovation, and social change began to reshape how people lived, worked, and most importantly, sat. The rapid advancements in technology, coupled with the growing emphasis on efficiency and comfort, led to a profound shift in the design of chairs. No longer were they mere symbols of wealth and status, nor were they simply functional objects. Chairs were becoming more closely tied to human comfort and well-being. In this chapter, we will explore how the rise of modern design, along with a growing understanding of ergonomics, transformed a chair from a simple seat into an essential tool for human productivity and health. The early part of the 20th century was characterized by the emergence of modernism, an artistic and architectural movement that rejected the ornate and the excessive in favor of simplicity, functionality, and clean lines. This movement, which was influenced by developments in art, architecture, and engineering, had a profound impact on furniture design. The chair, in particular, became a focal point for modern design, as it was increasingly viewed not just as a utilitarian object, but as a reflection of new ideas about form and function. One of the most important design movements of the 20th century was the Bauhaus school in Germany, founded by architect Walter Gropius in 1919. The Bauhaus movement sought to combine art with industrial design, focusing on the functional aspects of design while embracing modern materials and methods of production. Bauhaus designers like Marcel Breuer, Mies van der Rohe, and Wassily Kandinsky revolutionized the way furniture was created. They emphasized the use of steel, glass, and plywood to create sleek, minimalist designs that were both aesthetically pleasing and practical. The Bauhaus chair, and specifically Breuer's Wassily chair 1905, marked a major turning point in chair design. The chair featured a steel frame and woven leather straps for the seat and backrest, creating a lightweight, structurally sound, and visually striking design. This was a major departure from the heavy wooden chairs of the past. The Wassily chair represented the intersection of art and engineering, showing how new materials and methods could be used to create functional, comfortable, and beautiful furniture. Breuer's design was not just about looks. It was about finding a solution to the growing need for functional seating in a rapidly industrializing world. As modernism took hold, the ergonomics of chairs also began to gain attention. In the past, comfort had often been a secondary consideration in chair design, but as society began to prioritize health and well-being, the need for ergonomic chairs became apparent. The design of chairs was no longer just about style or status. It was about creating seating that supported the body, encouraged proper posture, and could be used for extended periods without discomfort. In the mid-20th century, office chairs became a particular area of focus. As the modern workplace evolved, people began to spend more time sitting at desks, and the need for ergonomically designed office chairs became more pressing. One of the most significant developments in this area came from Charles and Ray Eames, who are widely regarded as two of the most influential furniture designers of the 20th century. In 1948, the Eameses introduced the Eames lounge chair and ottoman, a design that would become an icon of modern furniture. The chair featured a padded leather seat, curved plywood backrest, and smooth lines that made it both aesthetically pleasing and comfortable. But the Eames lounge chair was more than just a beautiful design. It was a triumph of ergonomic thinking. The chair was carefully crafted to provide support and comfort, with a design that conformed to the natural shape of the body. It was a chair designed not just for sitting, but for relaxing, a seat that invited the user to lean back and unwind. The Eames lounge chair demonstrated the growing importance of ergonomics in furniture design, particularly as people began to spend longer hours seated at desks or relaxing in their homes. At the same time, the rise of plastic and metal chairs in the 1950s and 1960s marked another major shift in chair design. Chairs made from molded plastic or metal were lightweight, durable, and easy to mass produce, making them ideal for the growing demand for affordable seating. Designers like Eero Saarinen, who created the tulip chair in 1955, embraced the use of new materials to create chairs that were both functional and sculptural. The tulip chair, with its smooth, organic shape and minimalist design, became an icon of mid-century modernism and reflected the growing emphasis on clean lines and simplicity. The ergonomic office chair emerged as another significant development in the 20th century, as more people worked in offices and began spending long hours at desks. The design of office chairs became increasingly important. Herman Miller's Erin chair, introduced in 1994, revolutionized the ergonomic office chair by incorporating mesh fabric that allowed for breathability and adjustable features that catered to the individual needs of the sitter. The Erin chair became a symbol of modern office design, offering comfort, support, and adjustability to suit the changing needs of office workers. It was one of the first office chairs to truly address the principles of ergonomics, with its focus on body support, posture, and long-term comfort. By the end of the 20th century, the modern chair had evolved from the heavy, ornate armchairs of the past to become a piece of furniture that prioritized comfort, ergonomics, and design. Chairs were no longer just tools for sitting. They had become an integral part of how we work, relax, and interact with the world. From the Bauhaus designs to the ergonomic office chairs, the 20th century saw the rise of chairs that were not only functional, but that also reflected the changing needs of a rapidly modernizing world. As the century came to a close, the postmodern era of the 1980s and 1990s introduced new ideas about design, comfort, and individual expression. Chair designers began to experiment with new materials, unconventional shapes, and bold colors, creating chairs that were as much about personal style and artistic expression as they were about function. The chair had evolved from a simple, utilitarian object to an expression of identity, comfort, and design innovation. As we entered the 21st century, the evolution of chairs took a bold step forward, propelled by the intersection of technology, ergonomics, and aesthetic innovation. In many ways, the modern era of chair design reflects the growing complexity of our lives, with more focus on comfort, sustainability, and functionality in response to the demands of contemporary living and working. No longer just a seat to rest on, the chair has become a multifunctional tool, with advancements that ensure the user's comfort, health, and even performance. One of the most significant developments in the 21st century is the integration of ergonomics with technology. As our lives became more sedentary with the rise of office work, digital media, and remote learning, the need for ergonomic furniture became more pressing than ever. The 21st century witnessed a shift in chair design from being purely about comfort to being about health and performance. The rise of health-conscious office workers, combined with a growing awareness of posture and spinal health, led to a new era of ergonomic chairs that would become staples in workspaces around the globe. A key moment in this era was the introduction of the Herman Miller Erin chair in the early 1990s. Though it technically straddles the line between the 20th and 21st centuries, its influence and longevity make it one of the most defining pieces of ergonomic chair design in the modern world. The Erin chair was revolutionary in that it was one of the first chairs to use a mesh fabric material, which allowed for breathability and flexibility, crucial for long periods of sitting. This was paired with features such as adjustable lumbar support, tilt tension, and seat height adjustments. The errand chair was a response to the growing need for ergonomic solutions in office spaces, where employees were spending more hours sitting than ever before. It not only redefined comfort, but also marked the beginning of a widespread ergonomic revolution in the world of seating. At the same time, technological advancements began to be integrated into chair design in unexpected ways. The idea of the smart chair began to take shape, with features such as heating and cooling, massaging functions, and integrated sensors to monitor posture, blood circulation, and even heart rate. Companies like Steelcase and Humanscale introduced chairs with adaptive features designed to respond to the user's body, adjusting automatically to their movements and providing optimal support at all times. For instance, the Steelcase gesture chair was designed with a unique range of motion to accommodate users interacting with a variety of modern technologies, from smartphones to laptops to tablets. The chair essentially evolved from being a static object to a dynamic part of the workspace. As technology continued to evolve, designers began to consider the user experience in new ways. The growth of the home office and remote work culture also contributed to the increasing demand for ergonomic solutions. The need for adjustable chairs that were comfortable enough for extended periods of sitting became crucial as people spent long hours at desks, working, studying, and even lounging at home. The demand for highly customizable furniture allowed individuals to tailor their chairs to their specific needs. Lumbar support, seat depth, armrest positioning, and even recline angle were no longer just conveniences. They were requirements for comfort and health. One of the emerging trends in 21st century chair design has been the emphasis on sustainability. As concerns about climate change, resource depletion, and plastic waste grew, designers started to rethink how chairs could be made with more eco-friendly materials. Many modern designers embraced recycled materials, bamboo, and biodegradable plastics in their creations. Companies began to shift towards more sustainable practices, designing chairs that not only minimized their environmental impact, but also offered long-term durability. This shift towards sustainability marked a profound change in the way furniture, including chairs, was made, pushing the boundaries of how we think about resource efficiency and design. The push for environmentally responsible furniture led to the rise of the circular economy, where products, including chairs, are designed to be recycled, repurposed, or upcycled rather than discarded. Chairs such as the Emiko Navy chair, made from recycled aluminum, have become iconic examples of how functionality and sustainability can coexist. The materials used in these chairs were reimagined to create a product that not only looked modern, but also contributed to reducing environmental impact. In addition to sustainability, comfort remains at the forefront of modern chair design. As we spend increasing amounts of time sitting, whether at home, at work, or while studying, the importance of a comfortable and supportive chair has never been more critical. Memory foam, gel cushions, and high-density foam have been used extensively in creating chairs that mold to the contours of the body, providing optimal support and reducing strain on the spine and joints. These materials are often combined with adjustable settings to offer a personalized seating experience that can cater to a variety of body types and sitting preferences. The concept of multifunctional chairs also gained traction in the 21st century. As living spaces have become smaller and the demand for space-saving furniture grew, designers began creating chairs that served more than one purpose. Foldable chairs, convertible lounge chairs, and modular seating systems became increasingly popular as people sought versatile solutions for compact living spaces. The ergonomic recliner, a chair that provides not only support but also the ability to recline fully, adjust seating positions, and even move with the body, became more common in living rooms, particularly in the context of home entertainment and relaxation. One of the most innovative changes of the 21st century has been the rise of the gaming chair, designed for long hours of sitting in front of computers. These chairs are highly specialized, designed to support the back, neck, and arms while also providing recline options, adjustable lumbar support, and neck pillows to improve posture and reduce strain. Gaming chairs represent a fascinating intersection of technology, comfort, and aesthetic, where functionality meets design trends tailored to a specific type of user. Moreover, the rise of ergonomically designed seating is not limited to just office and home settings. The public sector also saw a shift toward more inclusive seating. Accessible chairs, designed to meet the needs of people with disabilities or mobility issues, became a growing trend in public spaces and offices. These chairs often feature adjustable heights, easy-to-use armrests, and supports to assist people with various physical needs. This focus on inclusivity in chair design reflects a broader societal commitment to improving accessibility and comfort for all. Looking ahead, it seems clear that the evolution of chairs is far from over. The future of seating may involve further integration with smart technology, where chairs not only support the body, but also track health data, adjust to the user's mood or needs, and even help improve posture and circulation. As we continue to innovate and design for a more sustainable and health-conscious world, the chair will remain an essential tool for comfort, function, and well-being. As we look toward the future, the world of chair design is poised for an exciting evolution. The past century has seen significant changes, from the ergonomic office chairs of the mid-20th century to the high-tech, adaptable seating solutions of today. The 21st century has already introduced us to smart chairs, sustainable materials, and ergonomic designs that are reshaping how we sit, work, and relax. But the question remains, what will the chair of tomorrow look like? What role will technology and innovation play in the seating experience in the years to come? One of the most significant trends we are seeing in the future of chair design is the continued integration of technology. As smart homes, wearable devices, and connected environments become the norm, chairs will likely become an even more active part of the digital ecosystem. Imagine a chair that not only supports your body, but also interacts with the smart technology around you, responding to changes in posture, mood, and physical needs. One potential development is the smart chair, a chair embedded with sensors and intelligent systems designed to improve comfort, health, and well-being. For example, adaptive seating that responds to changes in the user's posture could become commonplace. Using pressure sensors and movement detection technology, these chairs could adjust their position throughout the day to ensure that users maintain proper alignment and reduce the risk of back pain or muscle strain. The chair could recognize when the sitter has been in one position for too long and gently adjust to encourage movement, promoting better circulation and overall health. Imagine a chair that can monitor your health while you sit, detecting subtle changes in your body through sensors that track heart rate, blood circulation, and posture. This information could then be integrated into your health data ecosystem, allowing you to monitor your sitting habits and make adjustments to improve your well-being. Such smart chairs could even provide real-time feedback, alerting you if you need to stretch, change positions, or take a break. These health-conscious designs will be especially relevant in an increasingly sedentary world, with long hours spent working, studying, and relaxing in front of screens. Sitting for extended periods has become a major concern for our health. In response, designers will continue to develop chairs that offer active seating solutions. For example, dynamic seating systems might allow for a constant, gentle rocking or tilting motion that mimics standing and walking, encouraging more natural movement while sitting. These systems could be particularly beneficial in office environments, where employees often remain seated for hours. In addition to technological integration, sustainability will be a defining factor in the future of chairs. As concerns over climate change and environmental degradation grow, more and more designers will prioritize eco-friendly materials and production processes. We are already seeing this shift with recycled materials, biodegradable fabrics, and sustainable wood being used to create chairs that have a minimal environmental impact. In the future, we can expect even more innovation in this area, with carbon-neutral chairs becoming a common goal for designers and manufacturers alike. The concept of the circular economy, where products are designed to be recycled, repurposed, or upcycled at the end of their life cycle, will likely become a central principle in chair design. Chairs of the future may be made entirely from materials that can be easily disassembled, with components that can be reused or reprocessed. Instead of chairs being discarded at the end of their life, they could be sent back into the production cycle, where they are transformed into new products. This would help reduce the growing problem of furniture waste, making chairs a part of a larger, more sustainable ecosystem. Additionally, biomimicry, the practice of designing products inspired by nature, will play a significant role in the future of chairs. Designers may look to the natural world for inspiration, creating chairs that adapt to the body in ways similar to plants or animals. Imagine a chair that molds to your body's shape, much like the way a plant responds to sunlight, offering optimal support without the need for adjustments. Flexible materials, inspired by organic structures, could create seating that is both lightweight and highly durable while remaining comforting and responsive to your movements. The demand for customization will also influence the direction of future chair design. As technology becomes more integrated into our lives, people will expect their chairs to cater to their specific needs, whether they are at home, at work, or on the go. Chairs may become more modular, allowing users to personalize them based on their preferences. You could choose the backrest height, seat depth, and even the material that best suits your needs. Some chairs may have replaceable components that allow for easy upgrading or customization, ensuring that the furniture remains relevant and functional over time. As the digital age continues to reshape our relationship with work, leisure, and rest, virtual reality (VR) and augmented reality (AR) are expected to become more prevalent in daily life. Chairs designed for these experiences will likely evolve to support extended periods of use, with 360-degree swivel functions, adjustable armrests, and reclining features that allow users to immerse themselves in digital environments. These futuristic chairs could feature built-in speakers for immersive sound, vibration motors for haptic feedback, and integrated screens for enhanced interaction with virtual content. As VR and AR become more integrated into workplaces, entertainment, and education, the chair of the future will need to cater to these new needs, offering comfort, support, and adaptability. Lastly, as urban living spaces continue to shrink, space-saving chairs will become more sophisticated. Chairs that fold, collapse, or transform into other types of furniture will be essential in cities where space is at a premium. The future chair may even be modular, allowing users to create custom configurations based on available space and usage requirements. These innovative, multifunctional designs will help urban dwellers make the most of their smaller living areas without sacrificing comfort or functionality. In essence, the chair of the future will be a reflection of our evolving needs. From smart technology that promotes health and well-being to sustainable materials that minimize our environmental impact, the future of chair design is bright and full of possibilities. It will be a time where the functional meets the futuristic, where comfort is seamlessly integrated with sustainability and advanced technology. The chair will no longer be just a simple object to sit upon. It will be a dynamic tool, an extension of our bodies, and a reflection of our values and aspirations. As we come to the end of this journey through the long, fascinating history of chairs, it's important to pause and reflect on the incredible evolution we've witnessed. From the earliest days of sitting on the ground, through the rise of thrones and armchairs, To the ergonomic wonders and futuristic designs of today, chairs have been a constant presence in our lives, offering us comfort, support, and a place to rest our bodies and minds. But chairs are more than just functional objects. They are symbols of our history, culture, and advancements. They reflect the changing nature of society, from the power dynamics represented by royal thrones to the modern emphasis on comfort, health, and ergonomics. Chairs are not only tools that allow us to sit. They have become an essential part of our daily experiences, from our workspaces to our homes to our leisure time. When we look back at the evolution of chairs, we see how our understanding of comfort has shifted over time. In the early days, chairs were a privilege reserved for the elite, designed to convey status and power. Thrones and elaborate seats were crafted to symbolize authority, while the common people had to make do with the most basic forms of seating. The design of these early chairs was not focused on comfort, but rather on making a statement about the person sitting in them. Over time, however, as society evolved, so too did our ideas about sitting. The chair gradually became more functional, with an increasing focus on comfort and usability. The Industrial Revolution marked a major turning point, with mass production making chairs more accessible to people from all walks of life. This was the moment when ergonomics started to gain importance, as the need for chairs that could provide long-term comfort and support grew with the rise of office work and industrial labor. The advent of modernism in the 20th century further shifted our approach to chair design, as clean lines, functionality, and simplicity became the dominant aesthetic. The focus was no longer just on beauty and opulence. The chair was now seen as a tool for living. As we moved further into the 20th century, the ergonomic revolution began, and the role of the chair as a health tool became apparent. Chairs like the Erin chair became symbols of the new understanding of how sitting affects our bodies. Comfort, posture, and spinal health were no longer secondary concerns. The integration of technology and ergonomics into chair design marked the beginning of a new era, where chairs were not just something to sit in, but something that could enhance our well-being. In the 21st century, the focus has expanded to include sustainability, multifunctionality, and smart technology. Chairs now reflect our growing awareness of environmental issues, with an increasing demand for eco-friendly materials and designs that minimize waste and pollution. The rise of smart chairs, equipped with sensors to monitor posture, health, and comfort, indicates a shift toward a more personalized, health-conscious approach to seating. The integration of technology into our chairs will only continue to evolve, with features like adaptive seating, automated adjustments, and connected devices becoming commonplace. As we look to the future, we can't help but wonder, what will the next phase in the evolution of chairs look like? With the rapid advancements in technology, sustainability, and design, the possibilities seem endless. Will chairs become more adaptive, responding to our changing needs throughout the day? Will they become multifunctional, transforming from a desk chair to a lounge chair, or even a recliner that helps improve our posture as we sit? And will future chairs be entirely smart, equipped with health monitoring systems that help us track our well-being and adjust accordingly? The space-saving trend will likely continue as cities grow denser and people live in smaller, more compact environments. Chairs will need to become even more versatile and modular, with designs that can adapt to different environments and needs. Convertible chairs that serve multiple purposes, foldable seating, and stackable designs will be essential in the urban spaces of tomorrow, where efficiency and flexibility will be key. Sustainability will also continue to drive innovation in chair design. With growing concerns about climate change and resource depletion, future chairs will likely be made from regenerative materials, recycled components, and biodegradable fabrics. The idea of a chair as a circular product, designed to be reused, repurposed, or recycled at the end of its life cycle, will become a common practice in the industry. We may see chairs designed with minimal environmental impact, using materials that are both eco-friendly and innovative. The cradle-to-cradle concept, where products are designed for recycling and reuse, will likely be the guiding principle behind many future chair designs. And as we move into an increasingly connected world, chairs will likely become part of the Internet of Things IoT. Imagine a chair that can communicate with your home's smart system, adjusting your seat position as you begin your workday, automatically changing its settings when it detects a change in your posture, or even offering feedback on your physical health based on the data it collects. These advancements will make chairs even more than just a place to sit. They will become integral to our daily lives, helping us stay comfortable, healthy, and productive. Ultimately, the chair's role in our lives will continue to evolve. It will remain a place of rest, but it will also be a tool for health, comfort, and productivity. As we look to the future, we see a world where chairs are not just passive objects, but active participants in our well-being and quality of life. They will adapt to our bodies, respond to our needs, and evolve alongside our changing lifestyles and environments. The journey of the chair from a symbol of power and status to a symbol of comfort, health, and innovation is a testament to the ways in which design can shape our lives. As we continue to innovate and explore new technologies, materials, and ideas, the future of chairs looks brighter than ever, filled with possibilities that we can only begin to imagine. As we draw this journey to a close, we've explored the fascinating evolution of chairs, from their humble beginnings as basic seating solutions to the highly ergonomic, technologically advanced, and sustainably designed pieces of furniture that define our modern world. Chairs have not just supported us physically, they've evolved alongside us, reflecting the changes in our society, culture, and understanding of comfort and health. What began as a necessity for rest has transformed into an essential part of how we work, relax, and interact with the world. Whether it's the throne of a ruler, the ergonomic office chair of a modern-day worker, or the smart chair designed to improve our posture and health, the chair continues to serve not only as a seat, but as a tool for well-being, productivity, and comfort. As we look to the future, we are filled with curiosity about where chair design will go next. The technological innovations, sustainable materials, and ergonomic considerations that are shaping the future of seating will undoubtedly continue to revolutionize the way we sit, work, and live. Thank you for joining me on this calm and slow-paced journey through the history of chairs. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration and perhaps gained a deeper appreciation for the simple yet profound role that chairs play in our everyday lives. If you found this video soothing and interesting, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to the Sleep Library. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this series and any topics you'd like me to explore in the future. Until next time, may your seat always be comfortable, your posture healthy, and your rest peaceful.